We spend far too much time worried about what makes us different than the next person or better than the next person, and not enough time thinking about why we should respect the next person. We all have a story, an overarching theme that runs through our lives and makes us who we are. The problem is, we think that since each of our stories is different, there's not a lot of perceived value and shared struggle. But we have far more in common than we can imagine, and what motivates one person can certainly help us as well. The Third Lap podcast is about understanding, respecting, and appreciating the struggle that it takes to overcome immeasurable odds in order to reach your destiny. Join me as I interview and bond with some of the most inspiring and incredible people, diving into their why to get a full understanding of their being. Without each other, we have nothing. So let's go on this adventure together and take on the future with open minds and open hearts. Welcome to the Third Lap podcast. What's up, everybody? Happy Friday. Happy Third Lap Friday, specifically. Here again with another episode, this time pulling up with the homie, man, LaTasha Stone. LaTasha is just an all-around incredible human being. She's a mother, Black woman, educator, just straight up rock star. Can't wait to really get into her story and get a chance to just myself learn more about Stone and the work that she's done and ultimately what she'd like to do moving forward. But Stone, what's up, man? Anything I missed in regards to the introduction?
What's up, Mal? No, I think you pretty much summed it up. I like that rock star. I'm gonna add that to my resume. Sorry, hold on. These kids, let's stop recording. Listen, go back upstairs. I'm at work. Go back upstairs. Malcolm, I'm sorry. You see that? You should have got that actually, Malcolm.
I didn't stop recording.
Oh, shoot. See? Go upstairs. I'm sitting up here being professional. But yeah, rock star, mama, auntie, all that.
All that. Yeah, so Stone, so how we know each other. We actually know each other from work. So I met Stone pretty much when I started here at KIPP in Philadelphia. She was one of the first school leaders I interacted with, and then ultimately had the pleasure of working with her and her colleague, Sean Tucker. What's up, Tuck? Really last year through the hiring season. And so it was just great to work with you and see you really from like that first sort of virtual interview where it seemed like you were still figuring it out as we went to like the last one where, I mean, I was really just allowing you all to run it and facilitate back to me when it was time for me to talk. And so, just to see that development and like you developing your talent mindset, like I'm excited to see what's next for you as like a school leader, because seeing you go through the hiring, I know you could do it. But yeah, so we work together. Anything you want to add about like how we know each other?
Yeah, Malcolm. I mean, I feel like we started working more directly together last year, but I had seen you. I was like, yo, this brother is really dope. Like, I would really like to get to know him. Like, I come across as who I am to most folks. But you were unbothered by me in my presence. And I was like, okay, he's sturdy, he's solid. And so it was like, I definitely felt good being able to work directly with you and just get a better understanding of your story and how you approach talent. You have many people who are in your seat who don't take the job seriously of choosing folks who are then going to go teach our future, be in front of our Black and brown students. But you definitely, in conversations with you, understand the importance of getting a holistic educator, not just somebody who knows content well or can deliver instruction well. You think about all those intangibles that make a teacher or an educator a great educator.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And now I was unbothered. I mean, you're authentic. Like when I first met you the first time, you are who you present yourself to be. And I appreciate that, right? Like the one thing I hate doing is trying to like filter through who the person is presenting themselves as to figure out who they really are. I'd much rather I step to the table as I am. And, that's kind of like what I expect in return. And so that's why we hit it off
Right.
early, because
Yeah, that's too much to keep up with.
Yeah, no, I can't do that. I mean, when I was 25, maybe, but now where I am in my career, like, nah, I'm good. I would much rather be me. And yeah, the talent mindset, I appreciate that too. You have to take the job seriously. You know, the people that we hire are going to walk in front of our kids. I'm from West Philadelphia. So, you know, anybody that's going to represent and be in front of our kids in our community has to have the right mentality. And plus, I remember the first interview we did where the dude that didn't get to the next phase, and I
Wasn't
remember
he
the feedback. I remember the feedback I got from you, and I was like, okay, I got to
crazy?
do better.
I'm like,
It's-
if that's a Trump support if I ever heard one. No, 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 not in here.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
and
Yep,
it's
that was
funny you
interesting.
mentioned West Philly because I feel like that was the first real conversation you and I had. I said, you know what, where is he from? And you said West. I'm like, oh, I'm from North Philly, blah blah blah. So that's how we really started to get into it.
Yeah, everybody hears my accent and assumes I'm from New York. I lived in New York, but I'm from West. I'm from 40th and Lancaster, real close to the bottom. You know, if you know anything about West, you know what that is. But yeah, so perfect transition. Rep your hood, man. So you already said where you from, but I gotta let you go hard for your hood because I know you do. So rep your hood, Stone. Where you from?
Y'all already know I'm from North Philly. Grats in Dolphin, 19th in Dolphin, with the elementary school at 22nd in Dolphin, middle school 26 in Cumberland. I didn't go to my neighborhood school. I did go to Girls High, but I rep North Philly all day long. It's such an honor and a privilege to have been born and raised and still currently live in North Philly, and work and impact this community every single day. Like it's
Yep,
certainly an honor, because most people get their papers and roll out.
yep.
Um, but I knew from the start of my career I wanted to get my papers and stay. Um, and so yeah, North Philly all day,
All
all day.
day.
Yes, all day.
And so I wasn't the least bit surprised when I found out you was from down north, just because of the vibe, and then finding out, we'll get into your story, so I won't like dive too deep into it, but seeing kids that you had taught coming to the middle school, and being from West, I mean, I ain't really running around North Philly like that, because they know you not from North, right? And so like
Right.
it's the same in West, and so most of my time was West Southwest, but starting to work for Kip was the first time I'm going in North Philadelphia. And like I got family and people from over there. So people just hipping me to it. I'm like, okay, but I see how you handled and conducted yourself and how the kids responded to you. And I'm like, this is why it's so important for our students to see people that look like them in front of them, right? And even to see your trajectory, which again we'll get into, of starting off teacher LTF, but now leadership, and like they know anything is possible. And so, I love the fact that, like you said, you got your papers and you dug in and you raised your son right there, right? And now he's going off to do incredible things. So, awesome. Shout outs to North Philly. She, like
Yes.
she said, she ain't go to high school in North Philly, so she ain't keep it all the way. She like
All the
92%.
way. I had to go get something a little different, but I know where home at.
A
Listen.
fact. That's a fact. All right, Stone. So perfect. I mean, so listen, I would love to really just jump in at this point. We'll talk about a lot of different things, but more than anything, would just love to hear, where did your career start? How did you identify the career pathway in which you find yourself on currently was the right one for you?
It's so crazy because I never wanted to be a teacher or work in education. Like ever. I wanted to go be an actress. I was gonna go move to New York. I wanted to be in entertainment. I was gonna work for Diddy. I had like, or I was gonna be like even better than Wendy Williams on the radio. I was not kids. What? Bye. I was not about that. Um, but I got pregnant when I was 19. Um, and I was like, dang, I'm gonna be a mom. I need some money. And the only job that hired me was an after school program, Education Works. They still around here in the city. And I fell in love with it. I loved my kids, and I got the job when I was 7 months pregnant. Um, Helping them with their homework. I really just loved all aspects of it. And then when I went into labor at work, because I said, I'm going to stay with my kids. They love me. My kids, they wrote me letters. And I think that's when I was like, wow, like this is this is where I need to be. Because I always knew I wanted to impact people. I love people. I wanted to change lives. I knew I loved my community and my hood. I just didn't have an avenue, whether that was me being on TV and shouting out my hood, um, or what I later found out was me working within education, all aspects of education, and doing it through there. So I stayed with Education Works. While there, I went back to school because I had like dropped out of college. I went back to school. First, I did community, then I did Chestnut Hill. Got my undergrad degree while there um, in education, went to numerous trainings in the OST out of school time field because I really love that field as well too, and how it just enriches everything that we do in the classroom and like accounts for the whole child. So led went from after school program just worker to after school program director, camp director. Um, I worked at Vaux High School, Reynolds Elementary Middle School, which is closed now, and Germantown High School was the last school I was at before I eventually left, and went on to another charter organization to kind of start um, my career as a teacher assistant. And I would say that first year was definitely hard um, when I worked at Mastery, just simply because I knew all the things that I learned textbook style. I knew my experience from after school, and it just always was something missing. It was like, you know, is no balance. And I think that's always my argument when I'm talking about education in a classroom. Like, there has got to be a balance. Um, because it was driving me crazy. I am a human being. I want to have fun doing this. I know this can be fun, but I don't want to be a robot. Um, I want kids to and students to understand their power. And I think that's my philosophy I've always taken into this work. Like, I am only one um, link in their life. I'm only one link. And so I need to make sure the link or the seed that I impart in their garden is good. I have to be so many different things in order to ensure that that happens. I can't be stuck in one mindset, one mind frame. I have to constantly work to learn, work to grow, work to fail, and just to be better for them because they deserve it. You know, there was a lot of people who did that for me. A lot of people who put it all on the line essentially to see me become successful, because I certainly was a hot mess. Even joining KIP my first year as a teacher fellow, like I certainly was a hot mess, and I'm still a hot mess now as a leader. When I think about it all together, I think I'm just grateful for all the kids that I've been able to touch and learn from. Um, I've learned so much from my students about who I am as a woman, who I am as an educator and a mom. I learned more from them than I did any textbook that I had in school, because they're going to give it to you real. Next up is their parents. They're going to give it to you real. The kids, the parents, then your administrators and your directors of this. So I always wanted to make sure I passed their tests, because that's the test that matters um, most to me. I think I kind of went all over the place, Malcolm. You know, I
No,
get
no.
emotional when I start talking about my kids and the work.
No, that was perfect. And I agree 100% with you about the parents and the students being the test. That's why I love middle school, because like middle school kids, high schoolers keep it real with you too, but they also want to be real cool and like they trying to
Mm-hmm.
figure themselves. They want to be adults. Middle schoolers are kids and they are raw and they are reckless. And they will tell you exactly how they feel. And it's a great opportunity, what you mentioned, which is also like learning to fail, right? And in that opportunity of being vulnerable and making those mistakes, you can learn so much from the students as well. You should be learning. That's what the cultural competence piece is, right? It's like you're from North, but I'm sure you learn a ton of stuff about your kids and their backgrounds and where they're from. And y'all hail from the same place. So no, that was great. And so you mentioned that you initially had dropped out before you started doing like the OST programs. And so what were you initially like? What were you initially going to college for?
I changed that major so many times, Malcolm. I started out with communications as a theater major.
Okay.
Then I think I went to like some sad like workshop or something. I was like, no, I need to be a social worker. That lasted maybe for a semester. Um, yeah, so those were the two things I focused on. I did minor in psychology. I've always loved psychology,
Yep.
but communication. So I have a bunch of music credits that will never get used at all. It's good to like whip out in the party like some music history, but other than that, they ain't getting used
Like
at all.
You're listening to the Third Lap Podcast with Mal Davis.
and so okay, so you said you were a teaching associate at Mastery, learned a lot of valuable lessons there. And so after Mastery is when you transition to KIP.
Yeah, and it's like it's so odd. Like I think the beginning of my year can be like described with one word like fear, right? Like I was unhappy at Mastery, but I was willing to stay just to see my dream. Like I didn't um so I had applied for a lead teaching position there. Didn't get it. I had already taken a pay cut to come there because I knew I needed the experience in the classroom. They offered me like a 50-cent raise to stay. I was like, wait, I'm barely surviving now. I have my son. Like, I would love to stay. Like, I really do want to be a teacher. I made this financial thing work for one year because I thought, next year I've proven myself. Um, but they said they had gotten more applicants who were more qualified than I. And so I started my job search. I had applied to TFA, Philadelphia Teaching Fellows. I applied to like so many places. And I definitely said a little special prayer when I applied to KIP. Um, and only because the year before my son was entering kindergarten, the year before I had applied for him to go to KPEA, which is the elementary school for kindergarten. And I said, if I can get in here, like I felt good enough to send my son there. So I know it definitely probably is a good place to work. Um, and I got the interview. I read up on at the time it was called co-teacher the co-teacher program, and I just loved how it described your first year of teaching being supportive, because I saw those girls in Mastery that was first year like crying their eyes out. Like I knew I wasn't going to be crying and showing nobody I'm crying or nothing, but I definitely didn't want to go home and like be stressed out or feel like I can't do it. Because again, like I just am so fearful of everything that's at stake for our kids. So I was like, dang, they gonna really help you be successful. Because we all hear the stories of the teachers who are five and done and then head to the county. I never wanted to do that, ever, ever, ever. Um, and so I got the job. I was definitely a late hire. It was in the beginning of May or right before Memorial Day. Because I remember my interview day, it was a heat wave. It was like 98 degrees. And I'm sitting up there and this dressed up. Like, I definitely was a sweaty mess. I had caught the bus. Um, and I'll never forget Ben Spiker. I'll always be grateful to him for that. I think in the interview going good, I held up my facade for as long, my interview smile. And he said, I just have to ask, you're already established at Mastery. Why would you want to come here? And I kind of just broke down. The heat in the room, they had the doors closed. It was sweating. I was like, listen, all right, here's the deal. Here's the deal. And I was like, these people ain't gonna hire me. You done got real in there. I said, they got other people who are, I'm talking to him like he my homie from up the street. Um, And if anybody knows Ben, like he's very straightforward, like clean cut. And even in my interview, like I had made the kids vote on what book they wanted me to read. I was like, I don't think this is how the interview process was supposed to go, but I did it and I got the job. And ever since then, I've been truly grateful to Ben for giving me my first opportunity to be myself in this profession where I didn't really see a lot of me's in there. And it was several people within the organization and outside that kept reminding me to be me, be yourself. There was a lot of folks who didn't encourage that. And I've also learned, I'm grateful for those lessons as well. But for those people who reminded me to be myself, like I'm forever grateful for them because I got that permission, I was able to give that permission to my students and to my families, to the families that I serve. Yeah.
That is just incredible, and it really just speaks to the importance of people being able to show up and be themselves in the workplace, but especially teachers, right? Because so much of what we do as educators is modeling for our students what we want them to do. And if we're not showing up as our best selves and as our authentic selves, we're not modeling for them how to do that either. And kids can sniff a disingenuous person out miles away. They
Hello.
know. They know. Families know. You know what I mean? And really, your colleagues know too. We've both served with people in this work where we just knew they were showing up for a check, and eventually they stopped showing up. Like every single person that's been, I'm here for a check, stopped showing up at some point.
And that's what
Um,
I think. Wait, I be like, how sad you gotta be because
right.
we ain't in the business of making a
No,
whole bunch of money.
we are
And
not.
so, how sad you have to be as a person to
Mm,
damage kids' lives
right.
in order to make your pockets fatter. Good night. Like you are
Right.
in the way. You are in our way. Like there are definitely folks who are really trying to do the work and just get out the way. I think that's where I'm at now. Just get out my. I don't even want to try to educate you or get out the way.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, we in the same place with that one. It's like, get out the way. It's fine. If you don't want to be here, I'm at that point now. Okay, I respect that. Like there are
mhm.
other occupations and careers that you can have that might be more fulfilling, but don't take the seat of from a person that really wants to do this to not show up as your best self and not give all the effort that you can. That's always frustrated me about people in general. But with education, these are children's minds that we're shaping. Like we aren't making like car parts, right? Like if you don't
Mhm.
show up for your car part job, that sucks. I mean, the car parts might not be made as well, but that's a different sort of line of work. And
Right.
so always want to make sure that people are being very acutely aware of what they're doing when they're in the presence of our kids because the kids pick up on everything. And so Stone, for you, you mentioned that you were able for the first time to be able to show up as your authentic self. Shout outs to Ben and his staff. Talk to us though. I feel like a lot of people that may listen to this show might be headed into their first year of teaching. I've already spoken to some teachers on here and we'll talk to plenty more, I'm sure. And everyone talks about that first year, some first 3 years, right? And so talk to us about that early spot at KIP. So you left Mastery, found this home at KIP where you can be yourself. You're being encouraged by certain people to be yourself. What did that feel like? And then ultimately, how did that manifest itself inside your classroom?
Again, I feel like everything was definitely fortunate. We had a conference my first year before we taught kids, and somebody who had been in education for a long time told me, I was like, what advice? Like, I'm very green. What advice you got for me? I'm going into my first year teaching. And they were like, it's going to suck. It's going to suck like hell. You ain't going to like it. You're going to cry. Like, I'm talking about, told me not one positive thing. I was like, well, damn. I know how to cut out construction paper and stencils. I done found all my clip arts to decorate my classroom, and you gonna tell me it's gonna suck? But I think that was the best advice I could get. Because I think a lot of first year teachers come in with this preconceived notion that we are going to change the world, and we will, but it doesn't happen overnight. And when you come in your first year, you have to be humble and ready to fail. Like, big time. Ready to fail. That doesn't mean don't speak up, but definitely come from a point of asking a ton of questions, because a lot of people who have been in the game for a long time are doing stuff now strictly off muscle memory. It's not to slight you, it's not that they aren't keeping up with the latest research. um it is truly because they are operating off muscle memory, and that muscle memory has saved them a lot of stress, and so that's what they know. And so I would say, at least for the first 5 years, operate from a standpoint of constant reflection and humbleness. Um, Tackle everything with a question and questioning. And don't just ask other teachers, because some of my best advice has come from the janitor in my school, the woman that sits at the front desk, the people who work in the cafeteria. Those are the people who are going to have your back, especially in your first year, because they done seen them crash and burn. um and so if you build that relationship with them, they don't want to see you crash and burn, they're going to help you out. um and so that's what I would say. I would say the janitor, the folks working in the cafeteria holding, they're going to make sure you have a lunch when you forgot to bring your lunch, and they're going to drop some knowledge on you. And push, they probably went to school with the kid who mom who you having the most trouble with, and can drop a little knowledge and have your back, when you're trying to have tough conversations with families. And so I would say constantly stay humble. You are not your title, and you are not above anyone just because you have that degree and the state gave you a certificate that said, yeah, you can stand up there and tell people how to simplify fractions. Who gives a crap?
Right.
um yeah.
I think one of the biggest, and you mentioned like those preconceived misconceptions. One of the biggest ones for teachers graduating, you just named it, is that because you have this degree and you have this certification, that you own that classroom, right? Till you step in there and like take ownership of said classroom, that classroom belongs to those kids, bruh.
Mm-hmm.
And it is
Mm-hmm.
your job to corral the energy of those students, move it in the same direction, and hold each other accountable in the process. But something that I've seen and heard time and time again, really from like recent college graduates, is this assumption that what I learned in this book, like I'm gonna walk in and like implement these lesson plans and it's gonna be amazing and everybody's gonna pay attention and love it. And like you said, that first year is like, nah, like
Mm-hmm.
you have so many things that you still have to learn. And the advice that you gave, and I hope people really heed it around the cafeteria workers, talking to security, getting to know like every time I'm in the school, I'm talking to Ennis in the office, right? Like, I learned from a very early point in my career that you treat everybody the same, right? Like
Exactly.
I'm not gonna treat Walker any different than I treat Ennis or I treat the clean team, right? Because we're all human beings, we're all in this work together. And like you said, they 9 times out of 10, if I was in a situation, they knew the parent, right?
Mm-hmm.
They was, oh, Mr. Davis, let me jump in real quick. And crisis de-escalated almost immediately. And so, I love what you said about just staying humble, asking questions. So for you, what were some of those questions that you asked? So you alluded to the fact that you were asking some like really poignant questions. You were able to seek out the advice and guidance of different people throughout those first 5 years or so. Were there specific areas that you struggled that you felt like you had to address on your own? And if so, what were they?
It was definitely, so I always like knew I wanted the kids to have the ownership in the classroom, and like, but I think one thing that I had to come to realize was just the importance of being organized and having systems in place. Like, and I'm by nature not a good systems person. Like, I wake up, I don't have like a to-do list that I want to do. My life as I operate as Tasha is very different from the way I operate as Miss Stone. And I realized that the more you are organized within your space, the more successful your kids are. Like, it just naturally flows. The area I struggled with the most, and I think a lot of educators of color struggle with the most, is we come into this work because we didn't see a lot of folks like us teaching us. And so we get into it for the heart. We in it to do the heart work. And what we neglect to do, where I see some of us falling short, is that we don't acknowledge the science, because there is a science to this work. And fortunately for me, I had a lot of good coaches that allowed me or helped me see the power and the benefit of digging into that science of instructing and learning, and even my content areas, and like really nerd out on it. I'm to the point now where I would love to have a 3-hour conversation about idioms and allegory. Like, it really makes me excited to be able to do that, because the way idioms and allegory was explained to me was boring AF, right? But I know the way I understand it now, I can explain it to get a kid excited to want to integrate that into their writing, to better understand a text. That's powerful. And that's the reason why we need teachers like us, teachers of color, to really get more into the science behind education, because it's 10 times more impactful. You will be 10 times more impactful in your classrooms and in your spaces once you get that. It's not all about them seeing a black or brown face and being able to relate to you and dap you up, or I don't even know. I'm getting old now. I don't even know. Well, the kids, they flow with me whatever way I give them props, but it's more to that. If I can do that and break down simplifying these fractions for you, baby, I'm winning. I'm winning. And I am, how can I say this? I'm equivalent to my white counterparts, because they're going to come with their data, and their data is going to speak volumes. But if I got the data behind me and my relationships, baby, stand back. Stand back. I know what I'm doing, and I belong here on every single level. Every single level.
Yeah, the science that's 100, right? Like, and I remember my interview. Shouts out to Jill, the managing director of talent. And so, in my phone interview with her before I started with Kip, she asked me basically what are my thoughts on like the art of recruitment, but also the science, right? And like you said, in my personal life, I'm wild disorganized. Professionally, got it all in a row. Personally, I don't know what a checklist is. Ain't never had one. But what I realized is what you said is that the art component, being able to talk, being able to relate, being able to build those relationships is important. But if you don't have that data, if you can't prove that what you do transfers to something like real life outcomes, it doesn't matter. And so yeah, I encourage everybody to get behind the science of teaching, because there's so much that you can learn. And now that we're in this virtual world, it's mad technological advancements you can take advantage of that ultimately will help your kids, because there's so many different learning modalities that you have to address anyway.
You're listening to the Third Lap Podcast with Mal Davis.
This is Mal Davis with the Third Lap Podcast. I'm here with LaTasha Stone talking about her path to where she is in her career. And so, Stone, you talked about teaching for those 5 years, all the lessons that you learned, all that evolution of yourself involving the science and also the art form of building relationships. So you aren't teaching now though, right? Like you're now a school leader being developed by Isaiah Walker and what's happening at KPPA. So talk to us, what led to that transition from being a classroom teacher, ultimately making that leap into becoming a school building administrator.
I went dragging my feet, quite honestly, because again, I said I never wanted to be five and done. And especially working in a charter world is even faster, right? Like, I seen people come in and teach for 2 years, go into leadership And I'm like, that well, girl, how you learn? I went to school in the school district. All my teachers was old. They had done been there for 25 years. I'm thinking that's how it's supposed to be. I was looking at everybody like they was crazy. And I think it was after 1 year in particular. It was a hard year for me, hard class. And I just realized how small my impact was. And like, it was the year where we had lost like 4 Black men in the summer. It was like July to police violence, like broadcasting. I was just like, this is not happening fast enough. Like, I have got to do something different. And I hated the idea of going into leadership. I was like, I love the kids. I don't even like adults that much, but I was already doing it informally. You know what I mean? Like, I was staying after school until 7 o'clock, powwowing with my coworkers. We practicing and bouncing ideas off of each other, iron sharpening iron. I was already doing it. And so when the opportunity presented itself again for me to go into leadership, I was scared as hell. Because to me that's a big deal. That's almost like becoming a parent, or deciding to become pregnant. I took my impact or the lives I touched from 30 to now 180. I'm the AP of 5th and 6th grade, 180, then times that by 2, their families. You get what I'm saying? And so that was major for me, and not a decision I took lightly. And I'm a student at heart, so I always want to master the test. I felt like I hadn't mastered teaching. I was still learning. I was still on my way to becoming a great teacher. No matter how good I was still learning. And if you think you're done learning, get out the business. That's another thing. Get out the business if you think you're done. But yeah, I still feel very humbled to sit in this seat. And I still go in the classroom and teach. I beg one of them once a week to let me come in the classroom and teach. Because again, and especially now, because this is a great time to be an educator. I told you, like, I'm like a nerd, like, to teach in this historic moment in a pandemic where everybody is virtually, and we have to learn faster 10 times. Like, we have to be even better than we naturally are in the classroom. So I do teach in the classroom at least once a week or once every other week, because I want to stay sharp. I want to know what my teachers are experiencing, because how else am I supposed to nurture them and coach them if I don't experience it for myself? And like, shout out to every teacher who is teaching virtually. It is hard. It is hard. Don't let nobody else tell you different. Um, it is true. My first class I did, I was humbled. All my little tips and tricks I did in the classroom was not working. I'm telling you, kids was turning off videos left and right, coming off mute when they wasn't to. It took me a while to get my feet. So this is definitely this is year 2 leading, but I would say year 1 teaching again. Like, it's definitely a good experience.
And so, talk to us a little bit about your approach to leadership. So, you mentioned that your impact goes up in like at scale, right? So you step away from that classroom, and so you had your 30 kids. Now you're at 180 kids, and then 360 when or more people potentially, including families. And just seeing you in the building, I mean, I've seen students that you taught in elementary school run up to you as the AP in middle school, and check in with you, right? And so, what are you teaching your teachers about the art and the science of this, so that you're ensuring that when 5, maybe 10 years down the road, when they're reflecting and maybe doing a podcast like this, that they're talking about LaTasha Stone as the reason why they were able to develop the way that they were. So what are you looking to download into them so that you're making sure they're making the right deposits into your students?
Definitely making sure that they have the right mindset and are adopting that reflective mindset. You have to constantly be in a state of reflection. After you end every class, you should constantly be thinking, okay, what can I do differently? Or how did this go? What do I want to take with me? When you start getting into saying things like these kids or they didn't do, like, that's because they're kids. They're kids for a reason. At the end of the day, you're still the adult, and there's always something that we can do. Again, we never stop learning. And so I think that's one of the most important things. And also getting them to recognize how powerful they are. And it's hard, right? Because this field is definitely underappreciated for the work that we do. And so I really just want to always make my teachers feel like they are appreciated and understand how powerful they are every time they step in front of a kid. They are shaping attitudes, mindsets, as well as imparting knowledge. And so that's one of the major keys for me. And to constantly push them as well too, and push them to push me, right? um and I feel like that's something I also did with my students in my classroom. Like, make me earn my paycheck. That's one of my lines. Make me earn my paycheck. When you don't ask me questions, I'm not getting better. I'm sitting up here just earning for free. So, like, make me earn my paycheck. And so that's a major thing. Know how powerful they are every time they step in front of students, and to understand that there is always work to be done. Now that can be definitely tiring for some, like, dang, she making us do this again, or dang, yeah, come on, like, we teachers, we got energy for days. Get you some coffee, get a Red Bull, let's get it popping. Because the kids don't get tired
At all.
at all. So we definitely can't get tired.
Right.
We gotta have 10 times more energy to them with
Right.
older bones and older muscles,
Right.
you know?
Absolutely. And so, Stone, thank you for really, walking us through your trajectory. Like, it's been dope, man. Hearing from the very beginning at 19, pregnant with Chris, and like, oh, okay. It's like
Right.
it's really real right now. Like, let me figure this out. And ending up with what I would say has got to have been just a crazy rewarding career in education. I remember last year before COVID, we had one of our happy hours, and you were asked to talk, and that was the first time I knew that you were at LTF. And hearing you talk about your career starting as an LTF to where you are, and really at the end, like, you started to tear up, and I'm standing here like, yo, if she cries, I'm crying, yo. Like, if she cries right now, I'm crying, yo. And like, this has been so moving and so powerful to hear, and just why I've been, from the moment we first started connecting around being from Philly all the way to today on this podcast. I've just been so thrilled to work with you because I get a chance to learn from you constantly. You continue to help me understand just this work in a different way. And I appreciate you for it. And, I continue to look forward to you ultimately becoming a leader and a principal, and having your own staff that you shape and able to command the building yourself, and really drive that change. And to have gone from, like you said, seeing this impact in one classroom to being able to impact an entire building. I hope that you're proud of the work that you've done, and continue to stay humble, but know that, like, yo, we see you, man, and I'll sing your praises every opportunity that I get, Stone, for sure. And so, Stone, this wouldn't be the Third Lap podcast,
Yes.
huh?
You gonna make me cry. I can't with you. I
But this
can't.
wouldn't be the Third Lap podcast if we didn't also talk about, and you've alluded to some of them, touched on some, but I would love if there's anything that you would want to name around difficulties. I'm sure being pregnant at 19 and having to figure out your life, being a black woman, like you said, and a very authentic, straightforward black woman who she's herself, right, hasn't probably been easy professionally either. And so would love if you would just touch on some of the difficulties that you've had to overcome just to get to where you are. We heard how it ended, and we get to see potentially what's going to happen for you next. But what are some of the things that you had to overcome?
I would say definitely owning my identity. And I've always owned it, but I've never quite felt comfortable in it. Like, I own it because that's the right thing to do. You know what I mean? Like a lot of my professional career, I was fortunate enough to serve under strong Black women. I worked at an organization, UACAP, Linda Burnett, strong Black woman. Education Works, Dana Griffith was my supervisor, strong Black woman. It wasn't until I went into the school time work where I experienced white leaders who were white. And I think that was the major shock for me, how a lot of things I said, the way I wore my hair. I'm always a big hoop girl. Feedback on my earrings. Like and not acknowledging the heart and the passion that I brought to the work. Even in knowing I'm supposed to be there deep in my heart, but still questioning and wanting to feel confident, but never quite. Like, fortunately enough, I had Betsy Lawson, who was my first AP. She was white, but I remember one thing she told me. I was like up talking like crazy teaching this lesson. She was like, wait, stop. We didn't hire you to talk like that. We hired you because of who you are. So be yourself. Danielle Cooper Williams, who was my AP for 3 years, constantly every coaching meeting reminded me that I needed to be there because I was just constantly questioning. I never want to be in the business of destroying kids. I'm like, maybe I'm not the right person for this. Like, constantly, my current school leader constantly reminded me that I'm supposed to be in these spaces, and I'm in these spaces because I'm the voice for my kids. It's folks like that. Ivana, my former school leader, reminded me to feel my feelings, because that's who I am. I bring my whole self into this work. I can't shut that off just because I'm talking about data, or I'm talking about which novel we're going to choose. I gotta bring that. And so I don't know if I answered the question, Mal. I definitely went. You see, I'm all about my feelings, uh, and I'm definitely feeling it. But yeah, that was the challenge, and especially, I thought I mastered it until I became a leader. And a Black woman leading, that is a scary position to be in, because you definitely get undermined at every turn and questioned at every turn, not just from your supervisors, but from the folks who you supervise, and question even you being there and needing to, in order for that coachee relationship to work, there needs to be trust. And it took me a while to build some trust and knock down some barriers. And I would say both ways, because I've had some things said to me that I thought would never have been said to me. Stereotypes said to me about where I'm from, naming I'm from North Philly, about my education, not even knowing, everybody don't know how many degrees I got. I got 3. But I don't go around saying that. But the fact that I needed to validate my, or like have a second stamp from somebody else to prove that I'm supposed to be here, I think that was one of the things that hurt me, quite honestly, the most. But thank God I had folks in my corner, that pushed me to do more. I just had a conversation with Tiffany the other day, not even realizing that I needed to have that conversation to to feel affirmed again that yes, you are doing the right thing. You are supposed to be here. Yeah, so we definitely gotta hold each other down with that, because I often find myself, yo, you should have that conversation because somebody had that conversation with you. Pull that coattail. Go pull that coattail, because
Right,
don't let that slip. Nobody did that but you.
right.
Somebody was there for you. Pay it forward.
You're listening to the Third Lap Podcast with Mal Davis.
So I just wanted to, you mentioned Tiffany Holmes, wanted to shout her out. Coop, uh, you mentioned Ivana, and Lawson, who I don't know, but wanted to shout out all of those folks.
Airwalk.
Isaiah as well. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Come on. Now you know Isaiah
You
gonna
know
hear
that's
this,
my
so you know
guy.
I can't not shout out Isaiah. My phone would have been ringing. Like, listen, brother, I heard it, and you ain't shout me out. But no, shout outs to all of them, because I wholeheartedly agree. Like I said, I didn't work with Lawson, but everyone else that you named, I've been fortunate enough to like work with and learn from, and all just amazing leaders, right? And all people that encourage you to be your best self and coach you on how to do it correctly, though, right? Like those two things is having that support in place too, which is amazing. And so, I just want to affirm as well, Stone, you are where you're supposed to be, and you'll ultimately end up where you're supposed to go. And all the things that you've accomplished, like you worked hard as hell to get those things done. So can't nobody take that away from you. And so, again, this is Mal Davis with the Third Lab podcast here talking to LaTasha Stone about just her real awesome career in education so far. And so, Stone, what is your motivation? You've accomplished so many things. We sort of know where you're headed next as far as like leadership, but what motivates you to just keep going? You've stepped away from the classroom into leadership now. What keeps you pushing?
Um, I would definitely say number one, my son. He like looking at him, I know like I want this world to be dope for him, like thank God I only had one. I think I would lose my mind if I had more than one, just the worry that runs through a mother's body. Um, but my family's, when I got a lead teaching position from an LTF position, my family celebrated with me. They were happy. When I tell you they brought me a cake and they know I love fried chicken. Somebody brought me fried chicken to the classroom. Um, when they found out I was going to be an assistant principal, they celebrated with me. My kids and my family celebrated with me. And so again, they are the ultimate test, the ultimate deciding factor. They will let me know when you slipping, and they have. Yo, Miss Stone, I don't know about that right there. You tripping a little bit, and the kids as well. And I welcome that feedback because again, I'm a serve I'm a servant to them. I provide a service. Um and in that you constantly have to be humble and willing to pivot to provide what is needed. I'm not telling them what they need. They already know what they need. They live in their own life. You get what I'm saying? I know I got some good stuff over here. I'm gonna try to convince you about it, but ultimately you know what you need. Even the kids. And so yeah, that's what keeps me going. The service aspect, my son, and the kids and the families. Like, because this work is not done. No matter how far we come, this work is not done. Um, and I gotta leave it better. I'm not. I ain't tired, and I don't plan on getting tired no time soon. So
Nah, no way. With the energy you have, I don't see you getting tired anytime soon. And I'm glad to hear it because we need you. And a lot of times we end up folks like ourselves who super service minded and service oriented tend to stay in the classroom for good, right? Because we don't ever want to leave our families and the communities in which we serve. And it's just again just a testament to how amazing and what a rock star you are that like your family celebrated with you along the way. And shouts out to Chris. Shout out to Mikey too. Because that's my
yes,
man. I'll miss Mikey, man. And seeing you interact with Mikey, it just every time I saw the two of you walking in the hallway or talking in the office, like it just brought a smile to my face because even when you were holding him accountable for something that happened, like it was love. It was wrapped in love. It was clear that you had nothing but love for Mikey. I've never seen you interact with a student and it wasn't the foundation of love. It might have been, listen, yo, you got to tighten up. I need you to be better. But it was coming from a place that you clearly loved them and only wanted the best for them. And so, yeah, I'm sure that people have celebrated, once you get to wherever your next destination is, like, I include myself in this community now too. Like, we'll be
yes.
celebrating with you again because, I know for a fact that you have so much more left to give. And like you said, you have the energy to continue to serve. And so I'm just excited to see, where this goes for you next and what the rest of your career looks like. At this point, you've already done incredible work. So, it can only continue to go up from here, which is exciting. And so, Stone, we're getting to the end of the podcast. Again, just thank you so much for coming on here and being transparent and just sharing your truth. What are some of the motivational thoughts that you want to share with the people? And so we talked before we started recording about this, and so this is stamping the learner, right? And so this is something you coach your teachers on constantly. But what do you want to stamp from this session? What are the thoughts or the feelings that you want to share with folks to make sure that they walk away with it from your podcast episode?
I would say stay hungry. Stay. This work is so rewarding. It's just that paydays are sometimes far and few in between. And so rob Peter to pay Paul, but stay hungry because it is so rewarding. Just before this call, I had a family meeting in which 3 of the student speakers were my students that I had taught in kindergarten and in 4th grade, and like watching them get up there and speak as students who are about to go off to high school, like that is rewarding, like, you know, and to know those kids' stories and like what they overcame and know their families, like just stay hungry because it also, for me, it does something for me. And like that's where I'm gonna be selfish a little bit. Like make sure it stays fun for you. Find the joy in it because there's so much joy in educating students and serving families. Like, but you do have to find it and dig for it, and that's a challenge for you. And dag, I had me a good one stamping my learning, man. um oh, don't take it personal. We ain't get on this, um but in service to others you will be unappreciated because that's what servants, we don't appreciate the folks who are serving us. And so it can't be about you. This work is bigger than you, bigger than your title, bigger than your degrees, bigger than what you think it should be. And so don't take none of it personal. Remember who it's about. It's about the kids and it's about their families and ultimately the communities that we're impacting through this work. So don't take it personal. It ain't about you. It ain't about you, boo.
Yeah, and I think that don't take it personal. I've had to start applying that to like my personal life too, because I tend to take stuff personally, man. It just is what it is, and I've had to learn over time that, even if it is personal, oh well, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
life goes on, you move forward. But definitely, when what you said about like service is so real, we take for granted the people that quote unquote serve us, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
servitude is like it has a negative sort of connotation to it. And even when I first started in education, and like it was all around because I was a AmeriCorps, so it was serve, 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 serve.
Me too.
I was
I
like,
did
I'm not,
AmeriCorps.
yeah, I citizen schools. I'm like, I'm not serving like serve like that. Don't this is not a I'm not a waiter. But I learned overall what it means, and to have that service mindset, I would never argue against it. But yeah, man, show teachers respect. Teachers, show your administrators respect, right? Like when you have somebody that's investing their time and energy into making you better, respect that process. Take that coaching, take ownership of your learning the same way you want your students to. Because again, we model for our kids what we want them to do. And if we expect them to be successful, we got to show them the way, right? And so, Stone, what are some of the books or publications? What are some things that you've read or interacted with that have really helped you along your way? It could be professional, personal. I've had people share murder mysteries, nonfiction,
Oh my
whatever you
God, murder
enjoy.
mystery. Jesus Christ. Um, it's funny you say that, Mal. Like you be so on point. This um book, you can't see it, More Than Enough by Elaine Welterworth. That really spoke to me as a black woman. Um, and not just professionally talking
Mhm.
about a black body in a predominantly white space,
Okay.
but serving black folk. Um, she talks a lot about like imposter syndrome. She talks about like owning who you are, owning your blackness in spaces, personally as well as professionally. And so I've read through it once. I'm actually doubling back through it because of some personal goals that I've set for myself this year. Um, she is a great read, a very very great read. I even started following the book on Instagram because there's like always like a live talk or something related to the book. and also educated. I have this book sitting over here. I just read it. This was suggested to me by our former math person, by Tara Westover. It's about a girl who basically was homeschooled all her life and didn't step foot inside of a school building until she went off to college. Yeah, and it just talks about, and it, I started reading it at the beginning of the pandemic, and it's so, I think it's helped to shape and help me cope with not being in the building with my kids, because we still have school. Our classrooms are virtual, our hallways are virtual, but this is still school, and school can still happen whether we in brick and mortar or over the Zoom airwaves. So those are definitely two books that I've read recently that have helped me to shape my mindset, refine my philosophy on education, and being a black woman leading in this work.
Yeah, and I feel like the testament of any good book, any good anything is you go back and enjoy it for a second time. And so that's awesome that you're giving yourself that second go round.
Malcolm, I got notes in this joint. I
There
was
you
like,
go.
wait, I got to write some stuff. Damn.
There it is. And I'm actually checked that out. I haven't heard of it before, but I feel like there are quite a few black women in my life that are in a place where a book like that could be really influential. So I'm gonna definitely check that out. Maybe give that away as like a gift, birthday
Mm-hmm.
gifts.
Mm-hmm.
Valentine's Day is coming up. My wife, I'm like, you know,
You had
wrap
to
that
give
up
us
with some
something else
flowers.
besides this book,
Well, of
though,
course. I
Malcolm.
mean, some flowers, some chocolate, and a book. You know,
Right,
yeah,
right, right,
mix
right.
it up, diversify. Uh, but yeah, Stone. So thank you for the book suggestions. And so this is the component here where you get a chance to like just shout out your social media. Or if you don't want to do that, is there any social media you want people to follow or any work that you want to link yourself to? I'll also post the links on the actual website and also the social media post for your specific podcast episode when it comes out. But yeah, any social media you want people to follow?
Yeah, I got a bunch of them. I got AP Stony. That's for my children. To follow me. I'm not really active on there. My personal one though is Stony underscore T. Um, and I also in the pandemic, I'm from North. I guess to speak to my North Philly side, I'm such a hustler. I started a hair oil business, Grow Juice Hair Oil, all on Instagram. So yeah.
That I would expect nothing less, man. If you're not hustling, man, I'll be disappointed. Like Stone,
What
what
are
you
you
doing,
doing?
man?
Right. I told you I ain't getting tired.
Right.
Listen, I actually feel like I'm getting rusty.
There you go. Hair oil, that's what's up. Definitely a link to the Instagram for the hair oil. And probably yo, so you see how terrible my hair looks. A big reason why this podcast is all audio. It's audio right now. When I get the twist, then we'll go multimedia. But right now it's all audio. So I might even be placing an order just to make sure, my hair is good, man. Because at 35, it doesn't grow like it used to. When I had
You
my
see what
hair,
I'm saying?
yo, it's crazy. Like this has been a year's worth of struggle growth, and I'm like, damn. I remember when I grew up back in college, a year I was like twice as long. So I was like, I need some help. So I'm about to get some hair steroids and get it popping again. But
Right,
Stone,
right.
listen, I appreciate you. I'm glad that we had the opportunity to connect this week to talk just about your career, about your life, about all of the things that you've accomplished so far. Like I always say, I'm excited to, well, we're now in another hiring season, so we'll get another chance to work very closely together
The
to
team is back
identify.
at it.
Yeah, we're gonna bring you some more ELA folks and just really excited again to be able to speak to you today. I learned so much about you and about what just why you do the work that you do. And again, just excited to see where it goes in the future. So, any last words that you want to share before we log out?
No, just thank you for providing the space. Because that's all a lot of us really want is just the space. Because again, we need each other. This tribe is necessary. And so I'm glad that you thought of my voice as being one that needed to be lifted up. And I'm eager to hear the other voices that you bring to the table.
You were real early on the list. I had you early. We
Hey,
got to it now, but you were one of the first people that I thought of. Excited to hear feedback from your folks, right? Like the people that are close to you. What I found is that when people share these episodes with their family and friends, that people come back to them like, yo, I never knew. I interviewed my mom the second episode, you know, and learned things about my mom. And Lord knows I've known her my whole life.
Right.
And so it's just funny how you get a chance to really break things down and talk about them piece by piece, that folks uncover aspects of you that they just didn't know, that just helps them appreciate you that much more. So, you know, even hoping that you get a chance to share this with Chris at some point, right? And he gets a chance to sit down and learn about his mom's trajectory and the sacrifices that you had to make to ensure that he could make it into a really good high school and eventually go out into this world and command what he wants. And so again, Stone, thank you so much for your time. This is another episode of the Third Lab Podcast. Each one teach one. We all learn together. Thank you for tuning into another episode of the Third Lap Podcast. This is your host, Mal Davis. Please visit thethirdlappodcast.com for more information about the podcast, about our guests, and also to see our reading list. You can find us at The Third Lap Podcast on LinkedIn and Facebook, at Third Lap on Twitter, and at third_lap_podcast on Instagram. If you know anyone that would be great to be featured on this show, please reach out to our host, Mal Davis. He's always looking for interesting people to learn more about them and to talk about their pathway. Thank you so much again. Have a good one.